Good evening. We get back to our course in cognitive linguistics, and now we will cover the topic, the vertical dimension of categories. So let's get started. In a programmatic series of experiments, we have attempted to argue that categories within taxonomies of concrete objects are structured such that there is generally one level of abstraction at which the most basic category cuts can be made. By category is meant a number of objects that are considered equivalent. Categories are generally designated by names, for example, dog, animal, etc. And a taxonomy is a system by which categories are related to one another by means of class inclusion. So the greater the inclusiveness of a category within the taxonomy, the higher the level of abstraction. Each category within a taxonomy is entirely included within one other category unless it is the highest level category, but is not exhaustive of that more inclusive category. Thus, the term level of abstraction within a taxonomy refers to a particular level of inclusiveness, and a familiar taxonomy is the linear system for the classification of animals. Our claims concerning a basic level of abstraction can be formalized in terms of Q-validity or in terms of the set theoretic representation of similarity provided by Tversky. Q-validity is a probabilistic concept. The validity of a given Qx as a predictor of a given category Y increases as the frequency with which Qx is associated with category Y increases, and decreases as the frequency with which Qx is associated with categories other than Y increases. The Q-validity of an entire category may be defined as the summation of the Q-validities for that category of each of the attributes of the category, and a category with a high Q-validity is by definition more differentiated from other categories than one of lower Q-validity. The elegant formalization that Tversky provides in Chapter 4 is in terms of the variable category resemblance, which is defined as the weighted sum of the measures of all of the common features within a category minus the sum of the measures of all of the distinctive features. Distinctive features include those that belong to only some members of a given category, as well as those belonging to contrasting categories. Thus, Tversky's formalization does not weigh the effect of contrast categories as much as does the Q-validity formulation. Tversky suggests that two disjoint clauses tend to be combined whenever the weight of the added common features exceeds the weight of the distinctive features. A working assumption of the research in basic objects that first, in the perceived world, information-rich bundles of perceptual and functional attributes occur that form natural discontinuities, and that basic cuts in categorization are made at these discontinuities. Suppose that basic objects, for example chair and car, are at the most inclusive level at which they are attributes common to all or most members of the category. Then both total Q-validities and category resemblance are maximized at the level of abstraction at which basic objects are categorized. This is categories one level. More abstract will be subordinate categories, superordinate categories, for example furniture and vehicle, whose members share only a few attributes among each other. Categories below the basic level will be bundles of common and thus predictable attributes and functions, but contain many attributes that overlap with other categories. For example, kitchen chair shares most of its attributes with other kinds of chairs. Superordinate categories have lower total Q-validity and lower category resemblance than do basic level categories, because they have fewer common attributes. In fact, the category resemblance measure of items within the superordinate can even be negative due to the high ratio of distinctive to common features. Superordinate categories have lower total Q-validity than do basic categories, because they also share most attributes with contrasting subordinate categories. In Tversky's terms, they tend to be combined because the weight of the added common features tend to exceed the weight of the distinctive features. That basic objects are categories at the level of abstraction that maximizes Q-validity and maximizes category resemblance is another way of asserting that basic objects are the categories that best mirror the correlational structure of the environment. We chose to look at concrete objects because they appear to be a domain that was at once, and in this reputable aspect of complex natural language classifications, yet at the same time were amenable to methods of empirical analysis. In our investigations of basic categories, the correlational structure of concrete objects was considered to consist of a number of inseparable aspects of form and function, any one of which could serve as a starting point for analysis. For investigations provided converging operational definitions of the basic level of abstraction, attributes in common, motor movements in common, objective similarity in shape, and identifiability of average shapes. Let's go to the common attributes. Ethnobiologists had suggested on the basis of linguistic criteria and field observation that the FOBS was the level of classification at which organisms had bundles of attributes in common and maximum discontinuity between classes. The purpose of our research was to provide a systematic empirical study of the co-occurrence of attributes in the most common taxonomies of biological and man-made objects in our own culture. The hypothesis that basic level objects are the most inclusive level of classification, at which objects have numbers of attributes in common, was tested for the categories at 3 levels of abstraction for 9 taxonomies: tree, fish, fruit, musical instruments, tool, clothing, furniture, and vehicle. Examples of the 3 levels for one biological and one non-biological taxonomy can be seen in the Rush article that will be linked here in the profile. And criteria for choice of these specific items were that taxonomies contain the most common categories of concrete nouns in English, that the levels of abstraction bear simple class-inclusion relations to each other, and that those class-inclusion relations be generally known to our subjects. The middle level of abstraction was the hypothesized basic level. For non-biological taxonomies, this corresponded to the intuition of the experimenters. For biological categories, we assumed that the basic level would be the level of the folk generic. Subjects received sets of words taken from these 9 taxonomies. The subject's task was to list all of the attributes he could think of that were true of the items included in the class of things designated by each object name. Thus, for purposes of this study, attributes were defined operationally at whatever subjects agreed them to be, with no implications for whether such analysis of an object could or could not be perceptually considered prior to knowledge of the object itself. Result of the study were as predicted. Very few attributes were listed for the superordinate categories, as a significantly greater number listed for the supposed basic level objects, and not significantly more attributes listed for subordinate level objects than for basic level. An additional study showed essentially the same attributes listed for visually present objects as for the object names. The ongoing predicted result was that for the 3 biological taxonomies, the basic level, as defined by numbers of attributes in common, did not occur at the level of the folk generic, but appeared at the level we had originally expected to be superordinate. So superordinate would be a furniture, basic level would be chair, and subordinate would be kitchen chair, or let's say living room chair. That's it. So inseparable from the perceived attributes of objects are the ways in which humans habitually use or interact with those objects. The next one is similarity in shapes. So another aspect of the meaning of a class of objects is the appearance of the objects in the class. In order to be able to analyze correlational structures by different but converging methods, it was necessary to find a method of analyzing similarity in the visual aspects of the objects that was not dependent on subject descriptions, that was free from effects of the object's name, which would not have been the case for subjects' ratings of similarity, and that went beyond similarity of analyzable or listable attributes that had already been used in the first study described. For this purpose, outlines of the shape of 2-dimensional representations of objects were used, an integral aspect of natural forms. Similarity in shape was measured by the amount of overlap of the 2 outlines when the outlines were juxtaposed. Results showed that the ratio of overlapped to non-overlapped area when 2 objects form from the same basic level category were superimposed was far greater than when 2 objects from the same superordinate category were superimposed. let's say a car and a motorcycle, although some gain in radio of overlap to non-overlap also occurred for subordinate category objects. The gain obtained by shifting from basic level to subordinate objects was significantly less than the gain obtained by shifting from superordinate to basic level objects. The next one will be also identifiability of averaged shapes, implications for other fields, and imagery. Also perception, development, and also very interesting about the language. So we would expect actually that the most used name for an item to be a basic level name. And in fact, we found that adults almost invariably named pictures of the subordinate items of the 9 taxonomies at the basic level, although they knew that the correct superordinate and subordinate names of the objects. On a more speculative level in the evolution of languages, one would expect names to evolve first for basic level objects, spreading both upward and downward as taxonomies increase in depth. Of great relevance for this hypothesis are Berlin's claims for such a pattern for the evolution of plant names and our own, and Newsport's and Beluga's finding for American Sign Language of the deaf that it was the basic level categories that were most often coded by single signs and super and subordinate categories that were likely to be missing. Thus, a wide range in converging operations verify as basic the same levels of abstraction. Thank you very much for your attention in this course. Subscribe, ask questions, see you in the next video. Goodbye, that was Bogdan Fashtik. Have a nice evening.